up, everybody? I am MayorHawk, and it's time for yet another Hawk vlog. And so today we are going to be talking about the PlayStation Vita, how it did, and will Sony or should Sony consider making a PlayStation Vita 2? So let's first talk about the PlayStation Vita. It released on December 17th, 2011. So 6 years ago. We're already past December 17th. It's after Christmas, actually. So it was 6 years ago and a week. And so we've had 6 years of the Vita. How did it do? It sold 15.77 million units globally, which is not that good, honestly. It did far worse than the PlayStation Portable, which was its predecessor, that had over 80 million global unit sales. And so that was obviously significantly better. Why didn't the Vita do as well? Sony will blame it all on the mobile market, so your cell phone, the cheap mobile market, and how everybody now has a cell phone in their pocket, and they can get tons of free little like time-passing games from the Android store or the Apple store, and so you have this entire free or close to free or very cheap market of mobile games in your pocket automatically because you have a cell phone. That's Sony's reason for why the PlayStation Vita flopped. And so, is that true though? If you look at it, the 3DS, which was the PlayStation Vita's direct competitor, did significantly better. Now, the 3DS also failed to match the sales of its predecessor, and in that regard may be considered not the greatest success in Nintendo's eyes, which might be why we have the Nintendo Switch, which is not a full-fledged successor to the 3DS in that it's also a home console. So it's not just a continuation of the DS line, and it dropped the DS name. So Nintendo recognized that the mobile market was cutting into things, so they changed up their handheld console to make it your at-home console also, which in a brilliant move. And it is selling amazingly well. You can, like, there for a long time, you couldn't even find them. And when they were back in stock, they sold again tremendously well. And even though it didn't get a price cut at a lot of places over Black Friday, it was one of the top selling items. So this was all just incredible for Nintendo. They are doing wondrous things with the Nintendo Switch. So, Sony, what went wrong with your PlayStation Vita? Because the Nintendo Switch, it's your Nintendo experience all the time. That's what Sony was marketing the PlayStation Vita to be. So it seems like Nintendo has just succeeded with the Nintendo Switch where Sony didn't with the PlayStation Vita. Now, the PlayStation Vita is not a direct comparison to the Nintendo Switch in that it was never your only, or it was never your home console option for Sony either, because we had the PlayStation 3 already going when the Vita released, and then of course the PlayStation 4 a few years later released and did phenomenally well. So Sony didn't directly push the PlayStation Vita to be your your PlayStation device, but they were marketing it as your PlayStation experience on the go. And so if they are marketing it as that, and that's what Nintendo is delivering right now with the Switch and seemingly doing very well, what went wrong? Where was there a disconnect for Sony? Why didn't they get the same level of success with the Vita as Nintendo is seeing with the Switch, or not near as great, but as their previous PlayStation Portable? And so let's look at what all happened with the PlayStation Vita. Here it is right here. That's why I keep looking down on it. It was a neat little device. I'll take it out of my grip, if I can. I think I actually locked it. Nope. Okay, so we got it out of the grip. So this is what it looked like. I have a nice little white cover on it. This is actually the black new slim Wi-Fi model. When it first released, you had two different model options. There was a 3G model and this your Wi-Fi model. 3G could, of course, do Wi-Fi also. It had a amazingly nice OLED screen. No internal storage whatsoever. It was priced, I believe, at $300. Might have been $250, but it was expensive. There was a PlayStation 3 option for, I think, less at the time, or if not the same cost. So that was a giant, like kind of trolls would use that as a reason not to buy it. The really steep, expensive part of a PlayStation Vita, though, that any Vita owner would tell you is very stifling, is the cost of the proprietary memory cards. The PlayStation Portable used SD cards, micro SD cards, and so does the Nintendo 3DS. And so both of them leverage the fact that there was already this affordable memory card option out there that most people use in their daily life that you could use for your mobile gaming device. And it made sense. And so memory really didn't hold people back from getting your device and playing your games and downloading your games from the stores. It did with the PlayStation Vita. Memory is still, to this day, 6 years later, very expensive on the PlayStation Vita, and I think now the most we get, I could be wrong because I haven't looked in a long time, I think the most you can get on device is 1 gig, which isn't even going to get you a digitally downloaded game, and so you might be able to get a cartridge game on there, but you're not going to get more than one, I don't believe. So, I mean, you might get a couple smaller ones, but you're not going to get, you're not going to put Freedom Wars and Golden Abyss on there at the same time. And so that was probably, to me, the biggest stopper for a lot of people with the initial cost to get in. Also, Sony, they released it with a pretty good launch group of games that included Uncharted Golden Abyss. And then we had Uncharted Golden Abyss. After that, the next big first-party game for it that was touted was Resistance Burning Skies. That game did not do very well. Then we had the Call of Duty game, Call of Duty Black Ops Declassified. That didn't do tremendously well. Both Resistance Burning Skies and Call of Duty Black Ops Declassified were reviewed horribly. And so that really hurt. This was supposed to be their portable gaming device that let you play FPS games on the go, first-person shooter games on the go, because you had 2 analog sticks. And that was one thing that they big touted, because that was something that all the PSP fans really wanted, was the second analog stick. And it's actually a raised stick instead of the little nub. They really listened to the PSP fans about the actual console. They said, we want a touchscreen. You got a touchscreen. We actually got a rear touch pad also. We wanted 2 analog sticks, and we wanted them to actually be sticks, not nubs. We got that. And so they really listened to a lot of things on the device. They didn't listen in terms of memory, but the big thing that I remember listening to it being announced and people cheering was Call of Duty will come to the PlayStation Vita. And when it did, it didn't do well. We did eventually get a good first-person shooter game in Killzone Mercenary, which I really liked that game. It was relatively short, but it was really fun. The mechanics were really good. The story was good, and it had a decent online portion to it as well. So that was very good. But it just came kind of too little too late. My big surprise game of the Vita, probably the game that I liked the most on the Vita, was Gravity Rush. And that game is amazing to this day, with Gravity Rush 2 never seeing the PlayStation Vita. We also had some really fun games that came later with Digimon, Gundam, Freedom Wars, Danganronpa, Persona. So lots of fun games eventually made their way to the PlayStation Vita, but they're kind of the perception to your average gamer was that the PlayStation Vita did not have very many games. Especially when you looked at the 3DS, who did get a launch jump on the PlayStation Vita, and it just seemed like they were pumping out game after game after game after game after game. And so when you compared the libraries there for a long time between the two, it really hurt the PlayStation Vita. Also, the fact that the 3DS could easily backwards compatible play DS games, while the Vita could only do them with downloaded PSP games, which you couldn't get all PSP games downloaded. That also didn't bode well for the PlayStation Vita. And then its third strike. It's never good to have 3 big things against you. But the Vita's third strike was during its launch, all the commercials showed that the PlayStation Vita could remote play PS3 games, and they showed this by remote playing Killzone 3. You couldn't do that. And that was, of course, false advertising. There was a lawsuit. Sony did eventually credit a lot of, well, I think every Vita owner who got the game during the launch window. Really tried to do this whole marketing thing to kind of make up for that, but I think it did give them a bad rap for the PlayStation Vita, and I believe that definitely hurt them. down the line. Now, of course, you can remote play almost every PlayStation, if not all PS4 titles. For a long time, it was the remote play companion for the PlayStation 4. You can now, of course, use your laptop, but it still works very well for remote play. It actually does a good job. I remote play Horizon Zero Dawn all the time. It's a good experience. You can get, this is a grip fort, you can get one that has the L2 and R2. This one extends the battery life. So, with all that being said, we've kind of wrapped up. It wasn't a success, probably because of the high cost to get into it, lack of games later on in its life, and batter up from advertising that you can remote play PS3 games when you could only really do like 17 of them or something like that. So, why would Sony consider a second PlayStation Vita, the PS Vita 2, and should they consider it? The reason why they'd consider it is the Nintendo Switch. Whenever a rival company hits it big, like Nintendo really is doing with the Nintendo Switch, it's pretty reminiscent, the feel of it, like the way you couldn't find it and stuff, to the Nintendo Wii, which sold phenomenally well. And that you couldn't find it for a long time. And of course, the Wii did great, the Wii U did not. The PS Vita actually, fun fact, outsold globally to date right now the Wii U. So that is something that PS Vita can brag about, but that's sadly not saying a lot. But the Nintendo Switch is doing great, so that's why Sony may consider it. But I don't think they should. As much as I loved the PlayStation Portable, and as much as I have enjoyed my PlayStation Vita, as any of my friends would know, I would tell them I don't regret the purchase. I don't think Sony should do a PlayStation Vita 2. Especially don't call it that. The Vita name has a bad rep. If you do make another handheld, get a different name. But the reason I don't think they should is the reason why the Nintendo Switch is so good is because it is the new Nintendo device. It is a Nintendo home console that can be taken on the go pretty seamlessly. And that is your machine. That can be your Nintendo device, and you will get a full Nintendo experience. You have Mario Kart. You have Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, an incredible game. You're gonna have Pokemon on it eventually. We have Mario on it. It is a full Nintendo experience. And so in order for Sony to give that, they would have to directly compete with the PlayStation 4, which is doing really well for them right now. They already have PlayStation 4, PlayStation 4 Pro, and PlayStation VR. I don't think you need another thing right now. Maybe when it's time to replace the PS4, then you can consider something like that. Or maybe something that as like the next upgrade to the PS4, it can do that but doesn't kill off the PS4. You can't directly compete with yourself. And so that's why I would tell them don't do it right now. Don't make another solely handheld console, because you do compete against mobile gaming. You do compete against every tablet, every iPad. You will be competing still against the Nintendo 3DS and now the Nintendo Switch. I don't think that's a happy time for you right now. I think as your replacement device to the PS4, that would be a good thing. But I don't think that Nintendo should. I don't think it makes a lot of sense for them to release a new PlayStation Vita right now, as much as I loved it. Now, as a fan, if they did, I'd probably buy it. I'm not gonna lie, I'd probably jump all over it. But I don't think they should do it right now. So that's my thoughts on it all. I do love my PlayStation Vita. For everybody out there, I do love it. If you bought one, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments down below. Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Do you regret the purchase? Do you not? If you didn't get one, let me know why down in the comments down below. Also on Twitter and Facebook at Hawkville1. Also let me know, would you be interested in another Sony handheld console or a hybrid console in the future? Let me know that down in the comments below and on Twitter and Facebook at Hawkville1. This is MayorHawk. If you enjoyed this Hawk vlog, please hit that like button and the subscribe button. Hit that little notification bell so you get all these as soon as they come out. I hope you guys had a very Merry Christmas. We'll have more videos before the new year, but definitely have a Happy New Year, and we'll see you guys next time. This is MayorHawk out. Peace. Gotta hit the stop button.